fireside chat, which is going to be on the state of blockchain and crypto in Asia. Well, we're elated that we have with us our esteemed speakers who are joining us on this fireside chat. Well, we've got with us Changpeng Zhao, CEO Binance, also known as CZ. He's a serial entrepreneur with an impressive track record of successful startups. He launched Binance in July 2017, and within 180 days, grew Binance into the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the world. An expert in the blockchain and trading systems, CZ has built Binance into the leading blockchain ecosystem comprised of Binance Exchange, Labs, Launchpad, Info, Academy, Research, Trust Wallet, and Charity Foundation. Well, we're absolutely thrilled and honored to be able to host CZ at the World Blockchain Summit. Well, we also have joining CZ is Jun-Yan Wong, Managing Director, Content Products, CoinDesk. Well, Jun-Yan directs the programming at Consensus, the industry's most important conference. He started Consensus in 2015 and has covered the cryptocurrency world since 2013, when he was an early employee at CoinDesk. Previously, he was European technology correspondent at Quartz. Besides Consensus, he develops CoinDesk products that fall at the intersection of editorial, events, technology. He was selected to Business Insider's Tech 100 in 2018. Well, also the fact that, June, you've stayed all night for this, so thank you so much for joining us on that. I believe, June, it's almost 4 a.m. where you are right now. If I may request CZ and June to kindly put your video buttons on, and if you could kindly unmute yourself, please.
Hey there.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Thank you so much. I believe, June, it's 4 a.m. right now.
It's 5 a.m.
5 a.m.
Second cup of coffee, but you know they say crypto never sleeps, right?
Thank you so much for staying up all night for this. We really value that. Thank you so much on it.
Of course, my pleasure.
And once again, welcome on the World Blockchain Summit. And we have with us CZ as well, who's joined us. Thank you so much, CZ, for joining us. It's absolutely incredible having you on board.
Thank you for having me.
Over to you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Hey, CZ, good to see you again.
Good to see you. Yeah.
You know, we follow each other on Twitter, right? And I've noticed that you've been incredibly generous in recent hours with your Bitcoin giveaway. I'm still waiting for mine.
Yeah, give me one, I'll give you 10 back.
Yeah, I mean, you know, joking aside, I mean, this is a pretty serious situation where we have major world figures getting hacked. You know, my colleagues at CoinDesk, they've been following this story all day. According to their reporting, you were the first individual who was hacked by this massive global incident. I believe the sequence of events was Binance account, and then the Coinbase account, and then it was you. So I'm just wondering, can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on your side with regards to Twitter access?
Yeah, so I was notified around like 2 a.m. this morning, of the Binance account, Twitter account. Suddenly we lost control. So our guys are on 24 hours a day. As soon as we lose control, they noticed. And then a few minutes later, my account lost control. That was about like 2:33 a.m. And then initially we thought it was a problem on our side. Somehow our account got hacked. We were constantly under attack for our Twitter accounts. And Twitter offers limited security options, to be honest. These Twitter security options are a little bit weak. So initially we thought it may be a problem on our side. So we're digging into it. And very soon, Coinbase, Kraken, and a few other accounts got hacked. And a couple hours later, guys like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, all of those famous guys got hacked. Well, their Twitter accounts got compromised. It looks like a security issue, and Twitter seems to have admitted it. It's an issue on the Twitter side. So that's why it's affecting so many high-profile accounts. So Yeah, I mean, it is good that, well, it's bad in the sense that there's a security incident. I don't think there's a lot of money being lost. I think it's very clear that the hackers are using very basic scammer techniques, asking people to wire funds to a specific address, and initially to a website and now to an address. So I do want to encourage all of the industry players to actively block those addresses or blacklist those addresses so this is not centralization. This is just, we need to fight back to the bad players. On the positive note, it's kind of interesting. I'm honored to be the first guy they attack, even before Elon Musk and Bill Gates and all of my idols. So but jokes aside, it is a serious issue that we're dealing with. And it goes to show that the security is really important, given the maturity of and adoption of cryptocurrencies. Even security in traditional social media platforms and other platforms like email, all of those things are the security of those platforms are increasingly more important to the safety of people's funds. So it's a pretty interesting alarm. I don't think a lot of people lost a lot of money on this one. It's a pretty what we call a basic, relatively amateurish attack. But it's actually a good wake-up call for the industry to be more vigilant in security.
Yeah, I think the wallet address that there were, I think, 3 or 4 wallet addresses. I think they're currently showing something like $100,000 worth of funds in those addresses, or that have passed through those addresses.
Yeah, we gotta be. Yeah, so to be honest, we gotta be a little bit. There's a possibility that those funds are what we call bait funds. So the hackers typically do some transactions on those addresses to make sure those addresses look legit, and they actually make sure that other people looking at it see a history. So it may be victims' funds, it may be just hackers trying to fake funds. So it's not clear yet, but we should definitely actively monitor those funds flowing through those addresses and actively combat those fraud.
So what steps has Binance taken to are you blacklisting those addresses? Presumably you are.
Yes. So we've blacklisted those addresses within the hour, and we also made sure and we already checked, there's no funds going to those addresses from Binance user accounts. So we've done that immediately. And we also actually reached out to a number of our partners in the crypto space to ask them to do the same. So hopefully by having a concerted effort, we can actually incentivize future hackers for this kind of initiatives.
Is this the first time that the various exchanges in the space have sort of, tried to collaborate to blacklist a certain set of addresses?
No. So we actually do have communication channels among different exchanges for this particular purpose. So if one exchange gets hacked, the other exchanges all step in to help. Because to be honest, security issues happen on every exchange at different levels. Sometimes it's just a user whose account gets hacked because their computer got a virus and the username, password, and maybe even 2FA got leaked to a hacker and they lose funds. And we want other people to, well, if it happens on Binance, we of course appreciate other people to be cooperative. And when it happens on other platforms, we want to be cooperative as well. So I think as an industry, unknown to most people, the exchanges do compete a little bit on business, but from fighting fraud, we actually work together quite collaboratively. So I think doing that helps the entire industry. So we actively do that. And there's a large number of other exchanges who are very collaborative in that approach. So we help each other.
Right. So we're talking about exchanges like, Coinbase, perhaps Gemini, Bitstamp, Kraken, and so on.
Yeah, I don't want to name this. I don't want to name specific other ones and potentially leave some ones out by mistake. So the list is quite long, and we're generally most exchanges basically will cooperate. We also have some procedures that we do check that is just not some guy who wants to free some other guys they hate. So we have procedures to check that the user actually owns those funds. Typically, we ask for some kind of law enforcement involvement, like a police report, to make sure that the claim is legit. So there's a set of procedures we do check. But among the exchanges, there's a high degree of trust among those things. Look, if it's a couple $100,000 on an address that was transferred, if we ask some other exchange to freeze it, And if some other big exchange asks us to freeze it, the credibility of the exchanges among each other in this space is totally above that. And so we have a very collaborative approach on that.
Gotcha. And probably last question before I sort of move on to some of the other talking points we had prepared. Was there any other sort of damage or fallout from this particular hack, as far as you know, with regards to Binance or even your own personal account?
Not that I know of. So I still have not got my Twitter account back. So the Twitter account is suspended, so it's no longer able to post. The hacker's no longer able to post, but I haven't got access back to that account. But the Twitter account doesn't have very much other than tweeting things that's not under my control. So other than that, we don't see any material damages. There may be some reputational damage, but in this case, it's an industry-wide thing. It's a Twitter-wide thing, so it's not specific to us. So I think the damage there is quite small, reputational-wise. I think overall, a lot of these things are actually good alerts that put people on their toes to be more vigilant about security.
Yeah, gotcha. I mean, I think this is a good segue into a question I had. We're talking sort of about what's going on in Asia and crypto, and you obviously are a high-profile personality, and you built up that profile on Twitter. I guess two questions. Was that something you sort of quite deliberately wanted to do to build up that profile on Twitter? And then, going forward, do you think Twitter is the tool or the venue that you'll continue to sort of engage with your customers, your users, and other people in the industry?
Sure. I think I definitely didn't deliberately build that sort of. Everybody's got to subconsciously want to become famous and influential, but you can't really deliberately build that just by building that. I think I got lucky that we built a really strong platform. It's Binance that we built, and Binance give me that followership. So, and when we build Binance, we do want to build an international platform, and we have users from every country. So that helps me being more international. And my personal experience do help a little bit in that regard as well. So I've I lived in China. I was born in China. I'm Chinese by ethnicity. And then I lived in Canada, I worked in New York, US. So worked in also Tokyo, Hong Kong, Singapore, a bunch of other countries. So having sort of lived and worked in different places around the world, even when I was younger, give me that a little bit of a global mindset. So I don't really look at things on country by country basis. So even at a very young age, I had the thought of questions like, where does a country end? It's just imaginary, right? So the borders are human-made concepts. And I can travel from one country to another in Europe, for example, without crossing any physical borders. Even at a younger age, I had a much less sort of a country border mindset. It was always, look, we're all humans living on this one earth, and we should help each other, even though we may have different hair colors or skin colors, etc. So I was never sensitive or conscious about race, religion, etc. I think that Flip helped the Binance sort of mindset a little bit, that we've grown a very international platform. I also think blockchain, cryptocurrencies helped a lot in that regard, because when we started, it was a crypto-to-crypto exchange. Not having to touch fiat, blockchain is global, right? So you can use Bitcoin anywhere in the world, and you can buy any altcoin anywhere in the world. I think that helped a lot. So I think my influence really just from the sort of inherited from the product, having a really strong platform. I think without Binance, if I made the same number of tweets, I would not have the same kind of followership. So that part is very clear. There was a second part to your question, which is sorry, I skipped my mind.
Whether you were going to keep using Twitter to build that profile.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I think for Twitter, I think we're going to continue to keep using it, just because one platform had a security incident. In this case, somebody either internally or externally hacked into their admin panel or a large number of user accounts. Does not mean we're going to abandon it all of a sudden. It's just that we want to help them and work with them to, we hope they fix the security issues. If they need any of our help, we're more than willing to help. I think Twitter is still my preferred platform just because of the design of it. I tried many different platforms. We tried WeChat at the beginning, but WeChat groups only accommodate to about 500 people. So we quickly grew out of that in a couple of days. We were managing like 10, 20 different WeChat groups. We moved to like Slack. Slack's really used for internal communication, not for like fan or community management. There are security issues. There were bots like tweeting spam, security scams as well. And then we moved to Telegram. Telegram accommodates much larger chat groups, but chat is a different experience than tweeting. Chat, anything whenever I get into a Binance Telegram chat now, and there's like 10,000 people, 100,000 people, and everything I type stays on screen for like literally 0.2 seconds, and then just scrolls off. So there's not that, and Twitter offers the kind of followership where I can say something and a large number of people can see it, and I think and I can randomly or selectively respond to people that I either follow or I see as interesting comment, and the comments stay there. So I think that's a really useful platform to have, and no other platform have really been able to copy that. So, and Twitter, to be honest, had like anywhere crypto is thriving, anywhere the crypto community is popular, there's always going to be a lot of scammers. So there were like, send me 1 ETH and I'll send you 10 back scams. There's like on YouTube, there's now like live videos of me seemingly promoting some other scam. So the video editing softwares are strong enough to do that now. So there's all those kind of scams. But I think Twitter fundamentally, the platform functionality is strong, and I'm sure we'll continue to use that. Would we encourage other alternative platforms? We are using all the other social media platforms anyway, like Instagram, etc. Would we encourage new ones to be developed? Yes, absolutely. So hopefully there'll be more choices will help us. But right now, Twitter is probably the best medium for me personally. And we are very active on Twitter, so we'll continue to be after this incident is resolved.
Yeah. Probably the last question about your Twitter presence. You know, you're rare among CEOs from Asia in the crypto space, in the sense that you're bilingual, you have a high profile on English language social media, and I'm wondering if there's anything there that you want to say about how perhaps founders or CEOs of crypto companies from Asia, how they can cultivate that kind of channel to talk to their customers or to their audience.
Sure. I think I would say for CEOs everywhere, I highly encourage CEOs to directly interact, or founders to directly interact with their users. And for me, I typically manage one channel, and that's Twitter right now. So I spend roughly about like 10 to 20% of my time on Twitter. So the time commitment you can't skip. If you only spend like 1% of your time on Twitter, then yes, then you're not going to interact with a lot of users. A lot of the Twitter or any social platform or any community user communication platform, you're going to deal with a lot of random stuff, right? So the guys who love you, the guys who really like you, the guys who are thankful, who are supportive, and the guys who are like who are negative, who have a bad experience. And I'm doing a lot of customer support tasks as well. And then the guys were just like maybe I don't know, bot accounts or competitors, like basically paid trolls, sort of trying to damage you and waste your time. So there's all of those positive and negative things, and you just got to have a very strong mental power to filter those out and deal with that. For the Asian guys, or for the Asian-based companies, I would say English is really, really important. 55% of the written literature in the world, or at least on the internet, is in English. So having a strong command of English is really, really helpful. So I'm very lucky that, in the sense that I was exposed to English when I was younger. And having that native, well, not quite native, close to native exposure and understanding the culture is quite important, because it's just not language, right? So I can relate to a lot of the culture stuff in either US or UK, movies and books and stuff like that. So I think as you read more and look more, learn more about a language, the culture stuff really comes through. I'm actually not a very strong language expert, but at the same time, I think learning more languages will help a lot as well. I wish I'm better in more languages, but I think basically for me, my advice is just be yourself, right? So I just try to be myself. Some people are more introvert; they don't talk that much with strangers. To be honest, I used to be like that, but I kind of force my way to sort of just talk with everyone to the best extent I can. And sometimes I talk with a hater. Sometimes I waste a little bit of time, but I try to be myself. And now, one of the other common mistakes CEOs make is they just post; they don't respond. So they just post an announcement and articles, and they don't really comment. They don't really interact. I think I spend quite a lot of time just interacting and commenting other people's posts, which I think I view myself as a regular guy. So I'm just having a chat with one of our users, and or one of our supporters or one of our haters. And I think having that sort of on the ground level chatting, just commenting on other people's tweets, etc., helps a lot. I'm also very deliberate, carefully or deliberately. I try to retweet people who are supportive of Binance. So either retweet, follow. I try to promote people who are supporting Binance very subtly, just commenting on their tweets, etc. Typically, when I comment, I do have typically a larger following in the crypto space, and their tweets gets more impressions or views, and they tend to feel happy about it. So I do a lot of those things very subtly. But I want to give back. I want to help the guys who are actively helping us. So so I do all of those things, and I encourage all the CEOs, all the founders to do that as well.
Are you a blocker? Do you block the haters?
Yes, I do. So I don't know how many people I blocked so far, but I can't even check right now. But I do block. So I think basically, if a guy's clearly a hater, I just block it. I don't really waste too much. I don't really sweat over it. I don't really waste too much brain cycles. My philosophy is the least amount of energy I spend on those guys, the better. To be honest, if I can ignore them, that's even better. But ignoring actually requires higher mental power for most people, especially if those people are repeatedly annoying. So I don't know, they got nothing to do better in their lives, I guess, and they just keep spending energy on things they hate. Whereas in Twitter, if you hate something, just unfollow the guy and get on with your life. Don't use their product. Don't follow them and get on with your life. But so for the active haters, I just block them much easier. And so I do block a very large number of, I think a fairly decent number of people, unfortunately. And I apologize if I blocked anyone by mistake. Sometimes people joke on Twitter and it can be misinterpreted online. I apologize if that has happened. I probably did. But I do filter out the negative noise quite aggressively.
They can reach you on Telegram and ask you to unblock them, maybe.
Some do, yeah.
I want to ask a couple of questions about sort of the wider crypto market, and then I want to go into some of your new products and announcements that you've got. Are you yield farming? Is that on your radar?
You mean like DeFi?
Yeah, okay. DeFi stuff.
No, like, so I don't do anything myself. So I don't farm. I don't stake. I don't do any of those things myself. I think DeFi as an industry is relatively new, and I think all of those things are quite interesting. But I don't have time to do it myself, so I don't do any of those things personally. But I think DeFi as an industry, field farming, staking, all of this yield producing products are really interesting. They could move crypto in a completely new way. They could be a completely new addition to crypto, which is really, really interesting. At the same time, I want to point out a lot of these things are very new. They are hot, but they're also high risk. I think at the end of the day, probably a large number of projects will end up being failures. Only a small number of projects will be successful, and the small number of projects who are successful will be very successful. But there will be a large number of failures. So I just want people to understand there are inherent risks there. So I don't have time to experiment by myself, but I want to give that advice to people out there.
Do you have a view on the ETH 2.0 rollout? I mean, there's been sort of conflicting things coming up from the foundation and core developers and so on. I mean, that seems to be a big catalyst, right, in terms of where Ethereum and all the other dApps and DeFi things that are built on it will go. Wondering if you have a view on that.
Sure. I mean, I think all of us have been waiting for Ethereum 2.0 for quite a while. But I think I'll share my little history with Ethereum. Vitalik surprised me a few times when he was building with Ethereum 1.0. I was chatting with him like personally. He was leaving, well, he was crashing over in my apartment, and I was like, "This is too big of a bite to chew. I mean, you're gonna have a turning complete language in a blockchain. That's really hard to do. The project may be too ambitious." So back then, I felt he was too ambitious, and I actually, for that reason, I did not invest that much in, or I did not invest into Ethereum in like 2014, 2015. So missed out on all those yields. And he surprised me with a delivery. So he, to his credit, he delivered Ethereum with a turning complete language in there. So kudos to him. So Ethereum 2.0 is much harder given that Ethereum 1.0 is out and widely used. So you have to consider backward compatibility, porting, all of those issues, much harder. So it makes sense. Well, it's understandable that it's taking quite a bit longer than they promised, and they keep saying soon. But that's software development. That's especially decentralized software development. So it's really hard. I do really wish that I do really am anxiously waiting for Ethereum 2.0. I think it will have a really interesting impact on the overall ecosystem. So at the same time, I don't know when exactly you will be. I'm always kind of skeptical when they say you will be released soon. But I had my skepticism for Ethereum 1.0, and I was wrong. So I do hope they deliver soon.
Maybe it's a contra indicator. What do you think of reports? You know, CoinDesk, we broke the story recently that PayPal is thinking of getting into the crypto space, you know, offering something similar to a lot of fintech banks and so on, like Revolut and Robinhood and so on. You've spent a lot of time building out your fiat rails and on-ramps. Is that going to affect the business of a large exchange like Binance?
Oh, I think the only effect it will have is positive effect. So we actually don't, well, initially, the reason we started as a crypto-to-crypto exchange is that we actually didn't really want to build the fiat on-ramps. So the fiat gateways are actually much harder to build. You have to build them country by country, and it takes a lot of effort, it's high cost, etc. And we really welcome large players in the traditional financial space to support crypto. And so guys like Square, Cash App, now PayPal. So all of these guys, they have the traditional, they have the market user base. Well, PayPal has 300 million users. So having them come into this space is really good for us. They may compete with us. Well, they may be a bit of overlap on the fiat gateways. Our fiat gateways are really our fiat gateways and on ramps are really new and small. And we actually don't. We intentionally do not make any money on the fiat on ramps. So we charge 0 commission fees, and in fact, some of them we actually rebate users with the cashback, so that we encourage people to adopt it more. So for us, we just want to move. We just want to have more ability to move people from fiat into crypto, and vice versa. We want to build those bridges. And a big player like PayPal doing that is hugely beneficial to the overall ecosystem. And whatever makes the ecosystem bigger is good for us. So we really welcome those guys. So we don't really see them as competition or negative to our business. I think when they really launch their business, we're going to see our business grow.
And of course, people like Cash App, for example, you know, they do hundreds of millions a quarter in Bitcoin volume to their customers, but they need to connect to exchanges and OTC desks and so on the back end. Is that a part of the business that Binance would be interested in getting involved in?
Absolutely. I think anyone who wants liquidity in this space, we're happy to provide it. So we are probably the best liquidity provider for most coins, especially the larger Bitcoin or the larger coins. So we're more than happy to provide that liquidity, have partnerships, etc. So yeah, I mean that's the core of our business. We would be more than willing to help.
Have you talked to PayPal?
I can't say that specifically because I actually don't know for sure. But I mean, most of our partnership or this type of discussions is usually an NDA involved. So I try not to comment on specific names, etc. So I actually don't know if we have an NDA with any particular company anymore. But I try not to comment.
Sure. You know, when you look at all the different markets that you're operating in, what are some of the global hotspots where you see crypto trading ticking up? And I think in particular, I might want to ask you for your view on India, since Binance just joined the Internet and Mobile Association of India, which is most famous for taking on the central bank there and winning. What are your thoughts on the India market, and then just globally, what are other hotspots that are on your radar?
Sure. India is a really interesting market because it was like India bans Bitcoin, and then now the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Bitcoin. The banks have to work with crypto exchanges, and the crypto exchanges got bank accounts. And then there was another potential ban proposed. So there was always this back and forth. India is a very large country. We do see now a very large uptick in terms of user adoption in India, following the sort of Supreme Court ruling, I guess, in April. So that's really, really positive. But what we see is the number of users is growing quickly. The purchase amount per user is smaller than some of the developed countries, which is generally true for when we compare countries with higher earnings versus lower earnings. So India is definitely a very interesting market. There's a few other markets in Asia that are large population, like Indonesia is really interesting. We recently, together with our partner Toko Crypto, launched Toko Crypto launched the exchange. They also issued a stable coin there. So that's a really interesting market. Very large population, smaller purchase amounts per user, but large number of users. Africa, there's some really interesting countries. Nigeria is really, really picking up in terms of trading volume, together with most of the other African countries. So especially some of the developed ones. And Europe and Middle East are quite interesting. So we just announced we are expanding into the Middle East more seriously. So we have a number of efforts there. That's also an interesting area. Middle East just issued a couple licenses, so now there's a more regulatory clarity. So that's good for our industry in general. Turkey has always been a very active market, and the other we launched Binance UK. So all of Europe is actually quite interesting as well, because money flows very fluidly within the European region. And we recently added SEPA support directly. So now there's fast payments for cash in and out. That's really good as well. So we're also working with a number of large players as potential partners there. So all of those things are really, really interesting. Binance US is also interesting. They're growing very quickly as well. Their trading volumes are growing very healthily. They can only service a limited number of states so far, but they're in the application process for other states. So hopefully they can add more and more states. So to me, all of the world is really interesting. So this is why I never felt.
I think you named all the continents there.
Yeah. So this is why I never felt as like I'm Chinese, or I'm just focused on the Chinese market or something like that. So I think blockchain is the first time that allows entrepreneurs to focus on the world at the same time. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. When we had you at Consensus, I think 2 months ago, you mentioned that one of the first things you want to do after lockdown is to organize a big party or a big conference. And crypto and conferences have always gone together for some reason. I mean, we're doing a conference right now, and there's another conference I think called I forget the name that's happening at the same time as well. Like, why do you think that's the case? Why is this crypto and conference thing why do they go hand in hand?
I think, most of us are working really hard to spread adoption, and having conferences is probably one of the best ways to do it, because there's still a lot of new people who doesn't know about crypto, who wants to learn. This is a relatively new thing, and it's a very relatively innovative technology that do require some time investment to understand. So if you organize a conference about US dollars, there's still a Money 2020 conference, which is really large. So I think conferences are just a really good way for people to get together from all around the world, share ideas, and promote the industry forward. And given that crypto, I think, will be one of the fastest, if not the fastest, developing industry for the next little while, I think we'll just see more and more conferences.
Yeah. I've lost count of the number of virtual conferences I've been taking part in. I think we have maybe 1 or 2 minutes. I want to delve into CZ, the person. What's the last book you read?
Okay, I recently just read Innovation Stack by I guess Jim Beverly or Beckley McEvely. So he's the co-founder at Square. I guess Jack Dorsey's partner. So Innovation Stack is a really good book. I recommend it to any entrepreneur. It has a lot of I like books which have contrarian concepts. So in that book, there's a few concepts which are contrarian, counter to what you would normally think. And it's a really great book.
Well, what's the one takeaway? What's the one contrarian concept in there?
For example, one of the things he said is competition does not decrease, does not take away market share. So, for example, when IKEA entered Korea, he actually increased market share for all the other furniture sales guys in Korea. So that's something that most people misunderstand. And there's a few other things like, let me think. There's just a lot of really interesting concepts in there. That's yeah. There's quite a few. There's like Anyway, there's quite a few. I don't know which one I want to pick on just yet. I can go on for quite a while.
Yeah. You can do a book review on Twitter when you get access to your account again, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, also one other example is the low price versus lowest price. So that concept was explained in that book that I really like, which I didn't really think about clearly before. And given that, we actually might lower price again. So we'll see.
Right. Oh, that's good news for frequent traders. So I'm told we're running out of time, so I think we can wrap up here. Thanks so much, CZ, for doing this, and thank you to the organizers of this great conference.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks everyone. Cheers.
Thank you so much, CZ and Yuan. Once again, it was incredible having you. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you so much.